Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on into yet another Rooted podcast, of course, sponsored by our fantastic friends over at GreenBroz. Tim Schrommel coming to you from our beautiful Rooted podcast production facility out here in chilly Denver, Colorado. Actually getting some snow today. It's been crazy. Have to turn the heat on for the first time in a long time. Cullen, our guest today, the CEO from GreenBroz, he's a Colorado guy. He knows what it's like to be out here in the cold, and I'll ask him about that in just a second. But thank you for being with us, be it on iTunes, SoundCloud, or StayRooted.com. We're happy to have you with us. By the way, be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already, and leave us a review so we can continue to grow the show. Been getting some really killer reviews lately, and we definitely appreciate it. Also, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, which is linked to our site, StayRooted.com, for the full video version of this show, and our Rooted TV platform as well. Big shout out and big thanks to our friends over at Cannabis Club TV for helping to blow up that show. Lots of love to those guys, and be sure to check them out as well. Man, I am pumped for today's show as we're about to welcome in Cullen Raichart, CEO of GreenBroz, a company that produces world-leading harvesting solutions for the legal cannabis space. Long story short, GreenBroz manufactures dry trimmers, destemmers, trichome extractors, sorting machines. I could go on and on and on. Just about anything an operation needs for a successful harvest process, GreenBroz makes it. The reason I love having Cullen on is that the harvest equipment side of the industry is something that impacts just about every cultivation operation, and GreenBroz is the clear leader in the space in terms of the number of machines offered, the variety of functions those machines perform, and the end quality those machines can produce. So they kind of hit it from all levels, which is exciting. When we last spoke with Cullen at the end of 2017, GreenBroz had a ton of new developments and upcoming releases. Some we could talk about, some we couldn't mention just yet. Well, we're in for another jam-packed show this week, as there is a ton of new and exciting information to talk about. What does an end-to-end harvesting process look like? Are you hearing that for the first time? We're going to talk about that on the show today. How is GreenBroz jumping ahead of regulatory practices, things like sterilization techniques, cleanliness of machinery? How are they doing that? And how does a company like GreenBroz use partnerships to bolster their already diverse product offering? We're going to answer all those questions and more in this podcast, so make sure you listen to the whole thing. Cullen, seasoned veteran now on Rooted. This is your fourth or fifth time on the show. Welcome on in, man. How you doing?
I'm great, Tim. I guess a little bit of congratulations for you as well, man. You guys blowing up over there in the Rooted world. I see you guys all over the place.
Thanks, man. We're working hard on it. It's been a crazy year for us. I know it's been a crazy year for you guys. We last spoke about a year ago. What's this past year been like for you and GreenBroz? Can you put it into one little conversation for me?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know if we can put it all into one great little spot. It's been a lot of challenges this year. I think this year was... There's a lot of market fluctuation. There's a lot of market hesitation. We see a lot of saturation in some of the equipment arena. Regulation in California has had an impact on sales and not just for us, but I mean across the cannabis production industry. I mean, hydro stores are struggling, and supply houses are struggling. It's just been one of those years like. With the growth, and then have a year like that was like, ooh, breaks. But I think it's all starting to loosen back up again. We feel a lot of the tension's gone out of the air, especially with California. California's played this love-hate game with this for so long, but with legalization here, I think we're finally getting solid regulation from the government and guidelines that they're actually not going to go back on. Did I say that out loud? Anyway, we don't want, yeah, they change their mind on, you know how that goes. We've had a lot of partners struggle with changed regulations, adapt one way, try and get ahead of the market curve, and then get hit with, we're not going to do it that way. And then, it's really difficult for businesses to function that way. So we've seen a lot of that, and I think California is finally settling down, and we're going to see a big opening of the market and a lot of change there. So exciting. This year was, we were hard pressed to release a machine that we brought to Vegas last year. Right in the middle of having that ready, that sorter, we came up with some really just exceptional things that I really felt I couldn't move forward without putting in the machine. It just made too much sense. It delayed the output by, God, it delayed it by 4 months. Man, it was a really hard decision to make at the time. It was a really hard decision for our early adapters, our pre-purchase guys to sit and wait for. But at the end of the day, we have an incredibly solid piece of equipment that does the job really well. It's made out of stainless steel and food safe belting, and it's just a wonderful piece of equipment. And of course, it's gentle, quick, and quiet like all of our stuff. But it was a calculated risk adding the second conveyor level to it, but it was worth it. It was worth it.
It's very interesting because you started that by talking about the fluctuation in the market, and it's almost something that mirrors what's going on right now in the cannabis stock boom, that people are so excited about this industry and the progress of it. You're seeing prices and you're seeing the industry really take off, but everyone's expecting it to kind of reel back in. People should keep their expectations kind of tempered because it does pull back. And I think you're right on in terms of California, where news of legalization came down and a recreational date that would start, and everyone got so excited. And then the actual regulation takes place, and people are realizing that margins are very small. Hydro stores and dispensaries alike, there's so much tax, there's so much fiscal drain on these companies that many people outside the industry, or even people that consume cannabis, don't understand. And so they wonder why prices are high, why prices are fluctuating. And it does trickle down to companies like GreenBroz, who produce those ancillary products, those harvest products, the services for these companies. So it's a very interesting take out of the gate. I like that. Now, I don't want to waste time beating around the bush, so I want to get into more of my questions. To someone who's never heard of GreenBroz before, I mentioned it off the top of the show, what you guys produce, but what do you all do there? And why should people know who GreenBroz is?
Well, we're a harvesting solutions company. We are focused on the harvest end of the cannabis industry. We started with, actually it's interesting, we started with a dry sift machine in 2012 and then have kind of grown from there. The dry trimmer, which is, a stunning piece of equipment from its simplicity and its elegance and the quality of the trim that it produces. That machine really launched us into the mainstream and has given us a dominant position, in the market. We have, because of that machine, we've been able to diversify and reach out into other parts of the harvesting area. We've developed, destemming, sorting, and sifting. Those are principally where we are right now. But with the shift in the market, Tim, it's interesting. We see a shift toward consolidation, larger conglomerated farming, farm co-ops. So where small farmers are producing still, but they're producing in a co-op. So what we're seeing is a move and a push toward larger processing facilities, and that's a complete shift in equipment needs, right? So we started by making kind of individual size machines, and then we started selling large numbers of these machines to larger farms. And now what we're seeing is regulation is demanding a different level of equipment altogether. With GMP for Europe and food safe, and UL, a lot of companies are going, are you listed? And all of our equipment coming forward this year is going to be UL listed. So it's great. I mean, we've done a lot of work, behind the scenes here at the company, updating our equipment. And you got to come to Vegas. You have to come to Vegas. It's like SEMA. The stuff we're going to show you in Vegas is mind-blowing. Wow, it's awesome. We're so pumped up about it because we're actually bringing the trimmer is coming into a form factor that is, is ready for prime time, ready for the big time, man. It's surgical steel, UL, completely breakdown and cleanable. It's a rugged, heavy-duty piece of equipment that eliminates some of the older ideas we had and brings us into the modern era. We have another machine that's automated from front to back, where you just put your product in the back of it and turn it on, and set the recipe that you want, and it will just trim, load and unload itself and trim until the whole batch is done. So what we're getting to and what's coming is, processing in an end-to-end type of situation where, you're going into a facility that's going to process 100 pounds a day, 300 pounds a day, 500 pounds a day. And so you're looking at their whole workflow and you're going, okay, in order for you to do that, you need a machine that's going to be able to strip this much, move that much material down the line, put it into the trimming operation, remove your waste, put that into the ancillary or secondary operations, whatever the customer is using, whether it's dry sifting or ice hash or whatever they're using their trim product for. All of those pieces are pieces that we work with and produce here in-house. And so it's about tying that all together. And that's actually, that's where it's at. We have a couple companies right now that we're in negotiation for or with to build them specific machines, really large, high quality machines that will produce, trim the volumes that they're talking about trimming. So that's what we've seen as a shift, in the market. And so the company has shifted its focus and its toward, more mature products. That's kind of been that's what's really kind of taken up all of our resources this year and on our development cycle this year. So it's been an interesting year. On the one hand, we're rolling up and down with the market, but on the other hand, the demands that we're seeing are so different than what we saw last year even or the year before. And the reality is, like, we're the only company in this space that's prepared to do that. And that's what you're going to see in Vegas. You're going to see products that are prepared for that market, which is a different market than the home grower market or the small farm market that we used to have. Those farmers still exist, and we love them and support them, and we still make machines that are absolutely appropriate for that marketplace. But the market's dictating our movement into the commercial machine space, which is awesome. It's exciting. It's a great change for GreenBroz as a company.
Now, for our listeners, Cullen broke down the inception of GreenBroz and the early years in an earlier podcast. So go back and listen to episode 50 to get more of a background on that, so we don't have to worry about covering too much of that in this show. So much more to cover and to get to. So Cullen, GreenBroz produces harvesting solutions for the cannabis space. We talked about that. It's in a boom not only in the United States, but around the globe. Now, how easy or tough has it been to get into these international markets and to keep up with demand for harvesting solutions kind of around the world?
Well, that's a great question, Tim, because it's, every environment, every region has its own requirements, and you have to be able to service that market, one, but also you have to be completely cognizant and aware of what that market's demands are going to be on equipment, and that's what the push towards GMP and UL, CE, and all these different certifications is all about. It's about getting the company's products ready so that they can be put into any environment. For instance, if you look at the way Israel does their business and the way that the demands they put on equipment, that's one thing. If you look at it the way that it is in South America, it's a completely different thing. If you look at how it is in Spain or France or in Europe, you're looking at again something else where as the market matures, that's the fluctuation, right? You're getting pushed and pulled, and you're trying to adapt and make it so that your equipment is fits the right space. Not just from a functionality perspective, because our machines are functionally wonderful. They're great products, but you have to look at it from a regulatory perspective as well, because you don't want to have a company not able to use your equipment because of regulatory constraints. And we see that with a lot of our competitors, and that's just the way it is. I mean, if you're not prepared to bring your product into that upper level of regulatory compliance, then you're going to miss that market. And that's what's happened in the market to some extent. Larger companies get involved. They are playing by all the rules that exist. And our responsibility is to make equipment that conforms to those rules.
Speaking of markets outside the U.S., not to cut you off, sorry about that. Canada has been huge. It's been leading the way for much of the world. Really, probably the largest country you'd say that has passed a recreational system. Going live just a couple of weeks from this podcast airing. Are you seeing a demand for your equipment from countries like Canada?
Yeah, Canada has been a very, very strong market for us this year. As a matter of fact, if we hadn't experienced the kind of growth that we did this year in Canada, this year would have been a little bit harder for us as a company. But yeah, Canada, we have some amazing companies and partners. And if you're not familiar, we have some great video spotlights on at greenbroz.com that you can check out on our video. I'm sure we can get that posted up. But there's some videos of some really major players in Canada and kind of their perspective. It's nice to see their perspective and how they're doing it in Canada, because it's really what's happening here and how things are moving in this direction down here. Although Canada's population is much smaller, numerically, they have gotten this thing together from, they seem to have gotten it together. I'm not 100% in it, so I don't understand it all, but they seem to have a really good handle on the management of it. The regulation seems really tight. Their enforcement is really tight, and they've got a really good group of large companies who understand, how to do cannabis on a large scale. And it's really kind of cool to see that. But they're always, that market is asking for a different level of maturity from their equipment suppliers. And that's, principally one of the big drivers for us. Like I said earlier, is that, we need to accept that challenge, but we need to produce to that challenge and not sit and produce equipment that doesn't meet it.
Now, Cullen, in our pre-interview, I heard the term end-to-end solutions, really because I said it, but for the cannabis industry, and it's something you've alluded to in our last interview. You've talked about it already a little bit in this show, but can you tell me what that looks like for a cultivator and where you are in the process of putting that big system together? Could you break it down for me?
Sure. So, depending on the needs of of a cultivator, it's basically the the mechanics of receiving cannabis in whatever state that they receive, that they start their processing in, whether it's on the stem and they need to strip it, or whether it's already stripped and ready to go into trimming, and then moving that product from that stage, that entry stage, through the whole process, through mechanics, conveyors, and at every point along the way, you're checking and weighing, right? So you're making sure that you're calculating how much stem weight you have, you're calculating how much waste you have, how much loss you have throughout the whole process. So by the time you get to the end of the system, you know where your weight is, where your loss is, and you get a better understanding. You can get a much better understanding for your value in whatever product it is that they're running. So let's say they're running sour diesel, and they know that they're getting about a 20% loss overall, or whatever that number is. They know that their basic weight is here, and by the end they're going to get to here, and then they run another strain that they run and they love it a lot, but they're getting a 30 or 40% loss when you get to the end. By the time you get to the end, they can now look at that whole process and say, look, this is really not as valuable a product for us to work with as this product. And this is the thing that companies are demanding, right? They're demanding accountability at every step of the process for multiple reasons. They want to know if they can maximize and become more efficient in that area. They want to know if they're having unacceptable loss in that area, and they want that data to be collated and collected so that they can then comb through it. One of the really exciting things about still calling it the Model Z that you'll see in Vegas is that it will track everything that comes in and goes out of the machine. It will track the time that it spent in the machine, the time it spent forward and reverse. It'll track the weight that came in and the weight that goes out. So that's just at that one station. It'll tell you how much volume you put in and everything. That's just at that one part. So if you consider that the center of a central processing unit or a large processing station, you collect all that data there in that location. Then you can move that product from one step to the next step. If you're going to go to like our batcher, the precision batcher, you can take that product out of there, and then you can get from that stage to the batcher, and you can again track along the way in different sizes. You can sort by sizes, and you can track all that information. Like you can understand how much you're getting out in these different areas from these different plants. So you understand that this particular strain makes better shelf product. This particular strain ends up making better extract or concentrate product. You get more yield out of it that way. Or this particular strain makes great for micro packages and not, you know what I mean? It's like all these, there's so many different pieces of the puzzle, but that's just data collection and then handing that data again back to the customer, so the customer can then use that information to refine their processes and understand where they can gain those efficiencies. Because I think you mentioned earlier, Tim, margins are tighter than what people were probably initially thinking when they got into the industry, and the expectation from investors and outside pressures is that those margins not be tight. They want to see profits. So you have to be able to maximize that, and the way you do that is by providing information, quality equipment that reduces costs to the customer overall and gives them consistency in their product. And that's what end-to-end means. It means reducing the amount of loss, reducing the amount of manipulation, reducing the amount of touching of the product by human hands, because you want to have consistent product. And you do it through automated processing and design. That's what it comes down to.
Cullen, my next question kind of takes us through the ethos of GreenBroz. Saving time, money, and labor has been a tagline for GreenBroz as long as I can remember. Obviously, quality is that forefront word everyone's concerned with, and no one's trying to build machines that don't produce quality. So assuming the quality's there, which would make sense, tell me about the time and labor savings of an end-to-end solution like this. 'Cause I imagine, instead of one or two people running all of these machines separately, you could have a smaller workforce moving product much quicker in an end-to-end solution like this, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And then our perspective here is that when you do that, when you reduce kind of the when you go and look at labor and you say, well, we're going to reduce labor, we don't look at it necessarily as a direct reduction of labor. What we look at it is an increase in the labor value, right? So you can take a guy who is, has been doing hand trimming for you and supporting your company that way, and you might not need to have as many people doing that tedious task, but you can take a good guy and you can give him a better wage, a living wage, if you will, that they can actually have a career running a piece of equipment. And we're talking about high value and complicated equipment that somebody has to train and learn and get good at, and then that person has a higher value for the company and produces more. They produce more value. They have a higher value. So that's what we like to look at instead of looking at it as like getting rid of labor. It's increasing the value of the labor and then reducing the cost to the company. But yeah, you look at a big processing solution. It's so interesting. People tend to think that you're going to reduce all this labor and you're gonna you're not gonna have anybody around anymore, and all you want is robots, type of thing. And that's not exactly how it works. What happens is And I mean, it's a big push all over the country, right? Because we see a huge push in automation and robotics and all this other stuff, and everybody's like, my job. But what we're doing is not really that. What you're doing is you're creating the opportunity for a person to be exponentially more efficient and more valuable by producing way more than they could when they didn't have the proper tools or equipment, right? So an end-to-end processing solution, when you look at that, you look at how any food stuff is manufactured, you look at any consumable goods manufacturing, it doesn't look anything like cannabis right now. You know, cannabis still looks like cotton did back before the cotton gin. It looks, you know, cannabis looks like, you know, any number of products that are still processed or were processed traditionally in a hand processed way, right? And what we're trying to do and what we are doing and what the industry is actually demanding is that we bring in the ability to be more efficient and more effective, and that's what processing is all about. It's about being able to do larger volumes, keep your consistency and quality up, and produce a high quality product without having the burden of all that cost that's associated with, you know, doing all the tedious work by hand.
We're talking with Cullen Raichart, the founder and CEO of GreenBroz. You can hit him up, greenbroz.com, or call 844-DRY-TRIM to schedule a free demo in your area. 10-plus salespeople all across the country and in Canada. So if you're in any of those areas and you want a live demo or you want to learn more about the machines, you can hit them up, greenbroz.com or 844-DRY-TRIM to talk to one of the sales managers at GreenBroz. Now, Cullen, we're just about a month away, maybe a little less by the time this show gets out, to the MJBiz show in Vegas, which I know a lot of people consider one of the biggest cannabis trade shows every year. I know you guys are going to be there. You're going to have a big booth presentation. What can you tell me about what you're bringing to that event, and maybe what have people not seen that will be at that event?
Well, we will have showcased at least one of our new trimmer models, and hopefully we will have the Z complete at that point. We've had some challenges with the logic and working that out, but we're really close, and we have the mechanics are really beautiful, and the machine is stunning. You know, it's really a piece of art. When I look at it, it takes my breath away to think where we started and what I made when I made machines, you know, in 2012. And what I was doing back then and where we are now, and to see the evolution of the mechanics, and, you know, with the rebranding of the company, which we didn't mention, but you see the logo behind me, but with the rebranding of the company and the upscaling of the equipment, you know, GreenBroz is going to look a lot more mature and a lot more, well, mature is the way to say it. We're going to look a lot more mature and robust when you come and see us. You will see the sorter machines there, of course, and our regular accoutrement of products, our sifter and you know, destemming and all that kind of stuff. Also, our precision batcher is going to be on site, which, God, man, I just absolutely love that product. When you find a company like Green Vault and you make a partnership with guys like those guys, like Denny and Arner and their team, and you get the opportunity to work with guys like that who think about cannabis the way that we think about cannabis, you know, it's just a match made, perfectly made in heaven, if you will. It's just this great match that came together for us. Well, that was so successful for us this year that we continued to look down that road and at what we can do with other companies, and we've been talking to a company in Colorado, in your neck of the woods there, Tim, Pure Pressure, and after, you know, spending a year in conversation with them and really kind of getting to know them more, you know, they're another company that's just absolutely, there is nobody else in the rosin pressing kind of space that even compares. They are far and away the most mature company in the space. They produce the best equipment in the space, and they've, golly, if you get a chance to see the stuff that they do, go to their Instagram, Pure Pressure, and check it out. But they're going to partner with us, and we're going to start representing their equipment as well. So there again, Tim, you know, it's like we know that we are not going to be able to invent everything that needs to be produced for this industry. So we look for you know, guys like Josh over at Pure Pressure and Denny and Arner over at Green Vault, guys that you know, people that think about cannabis with respect and produce machines along that line, and their quality is right there where GreenBroz quality is, and their maturity is right there. It's just a really great partnership. So we're excited about that, absolutely, to bring them to the booth as well. They will have their own booth there as well, and that's great. We love that. And but we're gonna be working hand in hand with them as we move forward, and we're already started a joint project with them. So man, it's just like, keep going. That never seems to end. Also, we have another company that we're in work with called Purigen, and they make a machine that actually is used to sterilize human tissue for transplant. So and it's not radiation, and it's not microwave, and it's not chemical. It's like, wow, stunning. It's already gone through the FDA. It's already passed all the big hurdles. And here we have this opportunity to work with this company here in the cannabis space, where they can actually completely eliminate biological contamination from cannabis, and do it in a way that does not damage the product, does not hurt the terpene profile, does not cause any adverse side effects, and does not do anything like radiation or any of the other things that people are concerned about. The other really amazing thing about that product that we're excited about is it also has the ability to infuse into cannabis, a terpene profile. So if a product was lacking or didn't dry or mature correctly, that could be reintroduced with an add of a terpene profile to give that wonderful flavor and smell that we all know and love, especially when it comes down to your favorite strain. You've got that one strain where you just go and you breathe it in, you're like, it's magic. Well, that's such a valuable thing, but companies, you can have times where that can be lost, but you can reintroduce that with this machine. So we're exceptionally excited about bringing that opportunity to Vegas as well. So don't miss the show.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I need to know more about that. I haven't heard of that technology in the cannabis space. I've never heard of infusing terpenes back in. I think both of those things are incredibly exciting. So we'll have to get another podcast ready by the time that is introduced and lined up with GreenBroz equipment. Again, we're talking with Cullen Raichart, the founder and CEO of GreenBroz. Cullen, I'd be remiss to not ask you about the new logo. And you mentioned some media projects where you're highlighting different companies. And I've checked out some of the video work that GreenBroz has been producing. What's made you want to kind of, I guess, redo the brand and focus a little bit more on highlighting some of your partners through video?
The rebranding really came out of just you go along down a road, and you get to a point where you're like, we need to look at things and refresh things, and this is just a really good opportunity to change that up a little bit, because like I talked about earlier, the complete change in our approach to equipment, and the maturity that we're going through in that regard, the higher value of the equipment that we're selling, it just felt appropriate to kind of go after a different look to the company. The heart and soul of the company still remains our people, and still remains our commitment to our partners and to our customer base. But I believe really strongly that it took me a minute, to get used to. Obviously, once you get a new logo, but once I absolutely love it. It took a while to work it out and figure it out, but it represents to me, what we're doing as a company. It has a little bit of a torch aspect to it. Which is, what we feel like we're doing. We're kind of blazing the trail into this industry and, helping people be successful in a market that, quite frankly, is flooded with crap. So we feel like this gives us a maturity and a presence, and helps us to really rebrand ourselves and bring that kind of consciousness about who we are to the fore. Working with, on the video side, we've been very fortunate. We had the opportunity to work with ReadyCan in Canada, and WeedMD, and Jim Belushi down here in Oregon, and we've just had a really great experience because of the quality of work that our video team does, and and our media team has been able to put together. I think we started this 2 years ago when we started doing cultivator spotlights, which was just an opportunity for us to showcase some of our partners and what they do. And then in those spotlights, we had the opportunity to show that they use our equipment. And we really like that idea. But if you haven't seen anything big in Canada or you don't understand what they're doing, you got to check out the Ready Can, you got to check out the Weed MD, and you got to see how the Canadians are getting it done, because they're getting it done. Great companies, man, great people who have figured out how to do this thing in a really positive way. And then the opportunity to work with Jim has been just amazing, and I've developed a friendship with him. That's I never would have ever expected, but here we are in Cannabis, and now I'm able to hang out with Jim, and I'm going up to his house this weekend, and we're gonna go. He's having a grand opening party for his farm, which he's excited about up on the Rogues River in Medford, Oregon. But so it's interesting. The video media portion of the company kind of has come out of the hole, right? There's just a black hole of that's empty and it's not being filled, and you got a lot of people with good ideas to fill it into the space, and bringing content. But then there's, where do you put the content? How do you disseminate? Why are you putting all this together? For what reason? And we're fortunate here at GreenBroz to be able to do that for our customers and for ourselves. And even though it's just local, and we do get some reach outside, but even though it's just kind of an internal thing, we are starting to develop, like you are, presence outside and growing our social media presence and everything. And people are starting to pay attention because the quality of work we do is pretty astounding for a non-media company. So it's exciting. It's a part of the company that I really enjoy and I put a lot of energy into, and I really appreciate the creative that comes out of it. It's wonderful to see an anthem piece. Like, oh my God, if you haven't seen our anthem piece, you got to go to the website. You got to see our anthem piece. It's 2 minutes I think it's the 2 best minutes you can spend. But it's great. And actually, I believe, Tim, you're in that one.
Yeah, I did make a cameo in there. Cullen, I only have a couple more questions for you because I know you have an appointment that you have to get to. I want to talk about the sorter for just a minute. I mean, last year, the big buzz at your booth was about the sorter and the unveiling of that. But what I want to know is, why is sorting a important process, not only in just in the GreenBroz harvesting process, but why is sorting overall important for these cultivators, and how does it help them?
Well, sorting, Tim, is one of those tedious tasks that everybody does, and a lot of people don't actually realize how much time they spend doing it. There's a different value associated with buds based on size. Apparently, size does matter. So you have to be able to separate those things, and you give them different value when you do that. Also, for our micro batch, our precision batcher, depending on the size of the whey that you want, you want to be able to mix up different sizes so that you can get faster batching and get a better overall or more overall consistent product. So being able to sort stuff before you do other things with it is incredibly important. Some people like to see very consistent pounds or packaging, and then you can sort your product and have 20% of smalls, 20% of mediums, and 20% of larges, or whatever combination thereof that you want to make your packaging, so you can get that consistency. So there's a value in that. Also, some people pull off all things below X and they turn those into ancillary product. They go right to extraction, because they feel like they don't have a high value for them. It's more valuable to extract. So you can do that with the sorter. You can pull off whatever you don't want to have into your packaging and put it aside for something else. So sorting becomes one of those tasks that everybody ends up doing it, everybody does it. It's just, when you don't know how fast or how well you could do it, you tend to not do it as maybe efficiently or as much as you want to. You have a product like this that doesn't knock off your trichomes, keeps your sorting real clean and simple, easy to operate, easy to clean, easy to maintain, And when you see how people are using it, you say, wow, I would never even have thought to separate those two sizes, or to sort, you wouldn't, but you see people going, oh yeah, I can do this now. I can sort all this material and I can get it and I can use this for that and this for this and this for the other. And you're like, wow, that's a really powerful tool.
2 more questions for you, Cullen, and you can feel free to be as brief on this first question as you want, because I've asked you before, but I'm going to ask again. Now, we had our good friend of the show, Alan Brockstein, on a short while ago, a cannabis stock expert who runs New Cannabis Ventures, 420 investor. With cannabis stocks being as hot a topic really as anything else in the industry, the idea of GreenBroz going public, is that something that's on your mind? I know I asked you about a year ago, but I'm wondering how that's evolved in your mind.
It's an interesting question. I mean, at this point, it's one of those company has to be poised and ready for that. It's a big responsibility. Once you go public, you have a big responsibility to a lot more people. So it's not something that that I'm adverse to, and I don't know I can't remember what I said last year, so I'll probably blow it. But it's not something I'm against. It's just something that it's a challenge, man, and really there's a lot of infrastructure behind the scenes that has to be put into place and things like that, plus, a certain amount of capital that needs to be here in order for that to happen. But, yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to be on that roller coaster right now,
A crazy roller coaster for sure, and it's been a crazy year for you. So my last question before I get you out of here is, what is the next year plus going to be like for GreenBroz? You've alluded to some equipment that's about to hit the market, but what do you see when you see the next year for GreenBroz?
Yeah, it's a great question. I really think, we'll start kind of focusing on some of our bigger partners and doing some really big kind of installations. The end-to-end processing systems are coming along. So that's going to be another division of the company that focuses expressly on that. So I'm really excited to see that come to maturity and have its moment. Because, who doesn't want to be the guy that makes that machine? For me, that's my dream. I want to make that machine. I want to be that guy that makes that machine. And we're doing it. So it's really cool. So I see that kind of stuff and that kind of focus being there. I see growth in Europe, especially with the change in our products. I see growth in Europe. It's already happening, but I see that expanding greatly. It's hard to tell what the regulatory environment will be like, what the Fed's going to do, how that's going to affect things. I kind of see them slow rolling out. I don't see them do anything major. So not in the next year anyway. Maybe, but I doubt it. Our president could surprise us all. So you just don't know. But for GreenBroz, we're going to stay the course of what our plan is, what the overall overarching plan is, which is continue to provide, the best quality and the best value to our customers, and continue to support our customers, no matter what size they are, in their endeavors to live the American dream, because everybody's dream is different, and a lot of people really enjoy having boutique size cannabis, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Look at the microbrew world. My God, But the beautiful thing about the microbrew world is they have the same kind of level of equipment. Boutique cannabis is going to need that upper level of equipment just like big cannabis does. So it's just how it is, and we're just happy to be a part of it and lead some of it and grow into some of it and partner for some of it. It's a good time.
Again, he is the founder and CEO of GreenBroz Inc. You can check him out, greenbroz.com, or call 844-DRY-TRIM to schedule a demo of the machines in your area today. That's 844-DRY-TRIM. Cullen, great stuff. Thanks for joining us again, man. I'm excited for the MJBiz show to see all the equipment out there and to see the reaction from the crowd when you start unveiling some of these new things. And it's always exciting to see people checking out your old machines. I say old, but a year, 2 years, that's not old. Not as old as us, right? But we'll get you back on the show again soon, because I know there's more developments. We mentioned some of them in the show that I want to expunge on next time we talk. But great stuff, man. I'm looking forward to doing it again, and have a great show in Vegas, okay?
Tim, thank you, man. Congratulations again on your expanding and growth and all the fun stuff you're getting involved in. Appreciate the opportunity to be here, and come to Vegas.
Come to Vegas, he says. His name's Cullen Raichart with GreenBroz again. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap things up for us on the Rooted Podcast today. Don't forget to subscribe and follow the podcast. Leave us a review if you like, be it on iTunes, SoundCloud, or check out the website, stayrooted.com. We've got a lot of announcements we're hoping to bring to you in the next couple of weeks or months, so pay attention to our social platforms as well, at Stay Rooted across the board, and we'll get you those updates as we get them. But as for this podcast, it is now over. My name's been Tim Strombo, reminding you to work hard, be humble, and stay rooted. See you next week, everybody.